Techno Sports Central will be going over a college football game preview and prediction on one of the big matchups coming up in Week 11 of this 2020 season. That's going to be between the Penn State Nittany Lions and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And this is going to be a big game for both of these teams for many reasons. Of course, both teams have not gotten a win so far this season. So, yeah, one of these teams is going to finally get their first win. But also, I mean, looking at how much potential Nebraska has and looking at how much talent Penn State has, I mean, Penn State was expected to be a national contender this season. This is an important game for both these teams, especially trying to turn around their trends that they're currently at, because both teams right now are not looking very good at all. But nonetheless, this is an important game, and we'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this one here today, starting out with your team trends. And last week, Penn State lost to Maryland of all teams. 19-35 was the final score there. And of course, Maryland being Maryland, that was a pretty bad loss for Penn State. But then again, I mean, Maryland's looking pretty good this season so far, so that's not a terrible loss. But still, I mean, Penn State, they should have beaten Maryland there. But for Nebraska, they lost to Northwestern 13-21, being the final score there. Nebraska's really struggled on offense so far this season. I mean, the quarterback situation is a mess for the Cornhuskers right now. They've only scored 30 total points within 2 games. So all around, it's just kind of a mess right now for Nebraska. But for the winning streaks of both these teams, obviously both teams are winless right now. So they both have big losing streaks, but Penn State is 0-3 and Nebraska is 0-2. This game's going to be on Saturday, November 14th, noon Eastern in Lincoln, Nebraska. Nebraska will be your home team here. Spread currently says Penn State by 3.5. ESPN FPI's got Penn State 64%. And the Vegas prediction has got Penn State here 29-24 being the final score prediction. So all three of our sources here do have Penn State winning this matchup, which really is not all that much of a surprise. Obviously, Penn State, I would say, is much more talented than Nebraska. Even though the Huskers have had a good recruiting class, I mean, still Penn State, I think, Penn State all around, we saw how great they were last season. This team has got more talent than Nebraska does right now. But, I mean, all around, Penn State definitely, I think they should be the favorite, but I think they got it right there by making it a close spread, because I think both teams could easily win this matchup. But here's your second person for this one. Penn State currently has 26 points per game, 36 points allowed. So this is kind of a rare occasion where we see Penn State having 10 more points allowed than points per game. As far as yards, they got 286 average pass yards a game, 129 rush yards. Then for yards allowed, they got 256 passing, and then 124 rushing. For Nebraska, you got 15 points per game, 36 points allowed. You got 189 total pass yards a game, and you got 217 rush yards. So Nebraska's honestly been the best in the rushing corps so far this season in comparison to the quarterbacks. But for yards allowed, they got 222 passing and then 181 rushing. So all around, I would say Penn State is better right now in the stat comparison. But these are two very different teams. Of course, you got Penn State on one side that's more on the passing side. Meanwhile, for Nebraska, they've been kind of heavy on the rushing so far. Just kind of looking at the stats for both these teams so far, like Sean Clifford, he's just had a rough season for Penn State. He was expected to be a really good quarterback this year, and he's got 859 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Meanwhile, for Nebraska, they've kind of been splitting time between 2 quarterbacks with Adrian Martinez and Luke McCaffrey so far. Adrian Martinez, though, is the leading passer up until this point, but he doesn't even have a passing touchdown yet. He's got 230 yards and an interception, so he has gotten off to a rough start too. But for rushing yards, believe it or not, Sean Clifford is actually the leading rusher right now for Penn State with 150 rushing yards. Then Adrian Martinez is the leading rusher for Nebraska with 187 yards. So really, the quarterbacks have been good for both of these teams, but they've just been more of a rushing team. But nonetheless, for Nebraska, once again, you got to fix up your defense. If you can't be allowing over 400 yards to almost every team this season if you're going to expect to get any wins. But on the defensive side, even for Penn State, it really has not been very good. Usually we see Penn State with a great defense, but this season really has not been the case so far. Some key points for this one, of course, both teams are off to bad starts. That's pretty evident so far. None of these teams have even gotten a win yet. And I think it's bound to happen for both these teams eventually, but it's just been a crazy season for both these teams. I especially expected Penn State to be a national contender. I thought this could have been Penn State's year. I was thinking possibly we could see the Nittany Lions go on to possibly make it to the Big Ten championship, possibly beat out Ohio State for that top spot in the Big Ten East. But the odds of that happening are extremely low now, pretty much little to none. But for Nebraska on the other side, I expected Nebraska to possibly be a 500 team this season, which would be a huge improvement over recent years. But for Nebraska even, it's just been a tough start for them. But then again, Nebraska's schedule has been brutal up until this point. But we'll have to see what happens here. But Penn State's record, though, it doesn't show how much talent that they really have. Penn State has had a good recruiting class. They've got Sean Clifford at quarterback, who has proven time and time again how good of a quarterback he is. And Penn State returned a ton of players from 2019, which 2019 was a great year for the Nittany Lions. So all around, Penn State's got a lot of talent here. It's just they've just not been able to win the games is the problem here. I mean, they've had 3 really close games. They've just had the short end of the stick there as far as winning them. But in the end, this is a very important game for both these teams, I think. I mean, especially for if either of these teams are wanting to get to a good postseason position, because I think that we're going to see there will be some postseason action for both these teams moving forward. But I mean, you got to get these wins, especially considering how short of a season this is. You really don't have much time and much room for errors. So for both these teams, that's also why it's so important. But Nebraska's quarterback situation, they got to get that figured out too. I mean, they've been splitting time between Adrian Martinez and Luke McCaffrey once again. Both quarterbacks, both quarterbacks are decent. I mean, they don't have a Justin Fields or anything in their quarterback core, but I think Nebraska with time, I mean, they could be really good in that quarterback position. It's just right now, it's just a mess. And I think that they just need to stick to one person. I think having 2 quarterbacks shifting back and forth is just not the system to go with right now. And so for Nebraska, it's going to be interesting, especially towards the end of the season, to see which quarterback that they go with in the end. Like, me personally, I think Luke McCaffrey's been playing better. Like, Adrian Martinez has more stats, but then again, he doesn't even have a passing touchdown, and we've seen a much better play out of Luke McCaffrey so far. But in the end, I mean, it's just kind of a mess for both these teams right now. But nonetheless, here's what I'm expecting for this game. I've actually got Penn State getting the win here by a score of 34-31, but it will be a close one. I see Nebraska going back and forth with the Nittany Lions for a good chunk of this game. I think your halftime score is going to be a lead by Nebraska, 17-14 there, but in the final, Penn State gets the win, 34-31 being the final score. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we saw Nebraska get the win here then again. I mean, I think Nebraska has got the talent to pull off an upset here, but I think in the end, Penn State's going to get the win here. Probability is going to be 60% towards the Nittany Lions, but in the end, I mean, once again, it would not surprise me to see Nebraska get the win. Both of these teams moving forward. I think Penn State especially still has potential to have a good season. It just starts here. Like, Penn State, they cannot take another loss. Like, if Penn State starts 0-4, their season is already lost. So, yeah, Penn State, they've got to really get a win here. This is a very crucial game for Penn State especially. But yeah, that being said, that's my prediction on this game. Let me know your thoughts and comments below on this matchup. Let me know your score predictions, all that in the comments. But then again, thanks again for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this preview, slap a like on it and subscribe as well. Right up to the channel, and I'd really appreciate that. But as always, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you all later.